So what are we here for, right? We are here, and I will let you know, I guess, Owen. I am planning to push this to YouTube for like posterity's sake, just for anybody who doesn't want to watch it. You know, the VOD will obviously be published, and we'll push it. We're gonna push it to YouTube after that, so it'll stick around. So if you don't want to say anything that you don't want on YouTube forever and ever, you know, I think that ship has long sailed by all of us being on Twitch and the internet in general. However, you know, throw it out there as a disclaimer. Um, yeah, so we're here to talk about markets and the financial aspect of markets and what it really costs, what it takes, what, you know, a real, I guess, version of doing craft markets as an independent maker in, you know, two different countries and also two different levels of years of experience, right? One of the whole reason that I want to have this discussion and be as open and honest as I can and you know, transparency, right? I'm going to be completely transparent is because I think that this type of information is important to empower people, just to give them the information that's otherwise really hard to find. And then I mean, people tend to talk about it fairly generically and take into account like, well, it could be different in your area and this was my experience. And it's like they talk about their experience or how it could be different without actually giving you any context or really level setting it. You know, you might find a YouTube video here and there talking about you know, I did this one show or I did this weekend or something like that, but never like a year and always always kind of in a weird breakdown, right? It always ends up seemingly sounding a lot better than I think it actually turns out to be.
Well, even from people at market the day that you're there.
Yeah.
How was your day? It was really good. Well, what's really good?
Yeah.
What do you think is really good? Because
I spoke to loads of people. I got some leads.
I got some leads.
Yeah.
I saw a few nice dogs come by and say hello to me. That was a good day.
That was a good day. Exactly, right? And so, you know, I had these questions starting out. It's like, okay, so I went to our first market and, you know, we did our very first show. And at our very first show, we did $295 in sales, right? And it's like, is that good? Is it bad?
Well, we were excited. We
Is it average?
Stuff.
You know, it's like that's the big question. And so it's like there's really very little context because anything I could find, right, were people talking about, oh, you know, I went to this show and I did $1,500 in sales or $2,000 in sales or something like that. Like people who tend to be established in industry or I don't know, like it doesn't tell you the story, right? Because even $295 doesn't tell you the story of what you actually make, right? It's just the top line, right? It's the top line of any revenue of any business. It's like, well, these were my gross sales. It doesn't talk about your costs, right? It doesn't talk about what you actually made long term. So I guess that's what I'm trying to. That's what I really want to talk about and answer any questions. And obviously, I'll try to pay attention to chat if anybody has any questions. Thorns here is going to pay attention to chat. So that's what I'm hoping to do, right?
I'm just smart enough to pay for coffee.
How do you put value on your time making things? So that's a fantastic question, and actually something I wanted to answer through this, right, was to try and figure out. Okay, so if I can calculate what I earned, right, if I can calculate my sales and I can calculate my costs, right, material costs, and should be able to then track my time, but my time, you know, it's like I quickly realized you might know how long it takes you to make something. So, and we know, and I know exactly how long it takes you to make pens in bulk, right? Because I went through a 17-hour stream to document every part of the process to aggregate the data.
This is why you're the data analyst and I'm not.
Right, you know, and so it's like, you know, you get that number and you're like, okay, great. So, Owen, it was 22 minutes, I believe. You know, you averaged start to finish making a pen 22 minutes.
That's excellent. Good job, Owen.
Yeah. I don't make.
I'm not sure if it ever looks like a standard deviation on that, and
right,
because some of them were significantly longer and some were significantly slower, and that obviously skews those numbers. But average across a lot of pens. Yeah.
But what it doesn't take into account is, okay, great. So you made the pen. How long does it take you to sell the pen? Right. And that's actually where I think that that's what I was most interested in this, right? Thinking about that concept of, okay, I went and I sat there for 6 hours and it took me an hour to set up and an hour to tear down and my entire Saturday was gone. And it took me however long it took me to drive there. And then I sold X, right? And how does that correlate to and add to the time that it took me to make the item to then also sell the item? So Huntress, like, to answer your question, it's, I wanted to find out what we were making or what we are making currently, because you're right, in my head I have this idea of a day rate, or this idea of at least a respectable hourly. It's like I have a day job, I make a good salary. This isn't replacing that at any time soon, but what would it take for it to replace that, right? Or what would it take to even like take a 20% or a 30% pay cut and do this instead of that? And I feel like without breaking it down this way, I never would be able to answer that question. So
I would also like to say, after he finished everything, he's like, so what do you think our numbers are?
Yeah, like, what do you think we made per hour?
My guesses were very horrible. And the like $5 an hour, because I know what it's like when we're sitting there all day hoping for some of those sales sometimes, but on the average it was much better than that. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
But also the making, I do a lot of fiber art stuff too, and it's very, very difficult to figure out the time because of bulk cutting and batching and things like that. It's just different. So I agree. Difficult.
Have I considered time spent at a market as a business development cost? I'm not sure that I've completely broken down or attributed costs and time where maybe they should go in a standard business plan. I will definitely go over how I broke down my time to get to the numbers we got to, and I'm even open to discussion in like another way to think about it or another way to calculate it.
Well, I was also going to say, we have not had our taxes done yet, and this is the first year that we've done the business too. Mm-hmm. So the part where we're counting it as certain things too, we're kind of figuring that out as well.
Yeah. All right. Oh, and is there anything that you wanted that you're hoping to discuss at this time, or like hoping to share?
I think, I mean, obviously, I am not a data analyst. I've not gone anywhere near into as much detail on my costs as I know you've gone through and worked on your costs. Mm-hmm. I kind of work to I aim to go for a 50% gross profit on my products, which basically means that if I take double what it's cost me to be at an event, I've broken even.
Right.
That's my general viewpoint of my break-even point. If I was to take my overall costs of being that event, including my time and travel and everything, and double that, that's where I've broken even. I've not made a profit at that point. And that's kind of roughly what I have in my head when I'm working things out. Mm-hmm. But I've never actually sat down and really. Well, I know there's plenty of events where that doesn't happen, and there's plenty of events where I've made a great profit on that basis. But I've never really sat down in detail and done the calculations to see long term where that really comes out.
Okay. And so maybe this will be I don't know, like something for you. Maybe you take something away from this and be like, oh, maybe I'll track this at least additional data point in the future. I'm not not at all sure, right?
Well, now that you have mapped it into a spreadsheet, you have a general, if you wanted to plug in your numbers situation, then you could. And I don't think I'm gonna wanted to.
I don't think I'm gonna do this every time, right? I was definitely curious on right. Well, I mean, like there's some of these metrics that I really just wanted to know, and that I think are even just a one-time calculation, right? Like knowing per hour, like if I made this item per hour, how much am I making per hour, right? and even to get a correlation, so like I thought an important correlation, because I think sometimes you just need to have a base point and then be like 60% is good enough, right? Like if I know that, so like I was curious in the calculation of how much time did I spend at a market versus how much time did I spend making the items I sold at the market, right? Not necessarily how much time I spent making items, but how much time did I make spending items I sold at the market. And I have a ratio for that now, but I know, but as our sales go up, right, the time spent making is going to, you know, go past the time spent selling, and that's actually going to help in the overall benefit of what you're making. Your making time is going to be worth more than your selling time. Like right now, our selling time is worth more than our making time. So
Yeah.
I guess a comment factoring
the joy
the joy
of what you're
of
doing.
what you're making.
Absolutely. Like I think the joy isn't like that happiness is important. But it depends on the reason you're doing it, right? I think that that's an important thing to consider as well. Why are you making? Why are you attending markets? Why are you trying to sell your things? We've discussed or lamented about like the people who just do that to cover the costs of their hobby, right? I think that's been brought up quite a few times over a variety of streams where it's like that might be why they're doing it, right? But we tend to speak negatively of it because it hurts us, right? If you're trying to make profits, right? If you're trying to do more than just cover the costs of your hobby. So
My least favorite type of person at a market. They're lovely people, don't get me wrong, but they're going in and undercutting people who are trying to make a profit out of it. So they're my least favorite type of people at markets.
You mean, so what about them versus, I mean, we could dive into the customers. I don't know if we want to dive into that, but them versus the customers who just want to talk your ear off.
Very long stream.
They're my second least favorite type of person at a market. I don't mind talking to people. It's the people who don't take on the hints that you're going, there's someone actually might want to buy next to me.
Yeah, exactly.
As you're walking,
I can't talk to them because you're still telling me about your great grandfather's tool collection that's in the garage.
4 joy units. I like Jack's 4 joy units across the entire span of his life. He's earned 4 joy. Just 4. Have I thought about taking a back into a number approach? How much do I want to make in a week, a month? Yes. And that's part of and knowing if I'm even close, right? So I believe that from a making standpoint, I think the simplest way is a day rate, right? Is to think like, if here's what I want to make per year, here's what I need to make per day. So like if you're quoting something and you're like, it's going to take me 3 days to make this, and I want to make, we'll make it really easy on us, right? It's like I want to make $50,000 a year, $52,000 a year. I need to make $1,000 a week. If I'm going to work 5 days in a week, I need to make $200 a day. It's going to take me 3 days to make that thing. I need to make $600 for that thing, right? And so you can break that into an hourly, right? You want to make $200 a day. That breaks into however many hours you're going to work in that day. Let's say you work 10 hours in a day because where you're independent and that's what you do. You don't work 40 hours a week when you work for yourself, right? You work way more. So you make $20 an hour. So it's like any item you're making should be making you $20 an hour. I think that's the way that I would back into it, to try and make those numbers.
I think that side of it is fine if you're making to order and doing commissions, and what you're making is already sold. But what you're actually calculating there is your manufacturing costs. You're working out effectively your wholesale cost at that point. And you need to then account for, as we're probably going to talk about, the retail cost to add on to that. I've sold at various shops. I'm in one shop at the moment, and they take a 45% commission on sales.
Okay.
Which is fairly average for selling in that type of shop, gallery, craft store type shops. And that basically means that's what I always aim. Well, that 50% is what I aim for my gross profit on at the sales side of it. So whatever I think it's cost me to make, I will aim to double that to put on the table to sell.
What are you factoring in? Like what do you factor in at the moment for the cost to make versus the cost versus the sale? Like, are you thinking about how have you come about to average, I guess, the time that it takes to make it, in addition to the material cost, to hit that number that you're trying to hit?
So I basically I took an hourly rate that I um, think is fairly reasonable for a craft product
And let's, if you don't
and the
mind,
type of skill
what's
that
that
you're using.
what's the rate that you were using?
So I've always calculated it's probably a bit low actually now, but I did my workings out on a £15 an hour rate,
Okay.
which is, I think when I sat down and took that as a base point, I think that was double what minimum wage was at that point in time.
Okay.
Just to put it into a sort of perspective.
Right.
So I did the calculations based on that, and then obviously your making is your time, your raw materials, and your money towards your equipment,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all I count for. And that basically is the making cost, with a bit of profit added to that at that point. Time is obviously money that I'm earning from it,
Mm-hmm.
but I probably then put a small extra on that, so it was a profit element as well as a pure time element, and covers incidentals and stuff like that. So yeah, I think minimum wage in the UK now, Huntress, is just over £9 an hour. So
Yeah.
it has gone up a little bit from.
Huntress's number is not actually the U.S. minimum wage. It's probably I think it's probably the average that people in the U.S. make an hour. Because I know that it's, well, not every state is 1574 at least. So
So
No, I'm
so
kidding.
that kind of gives me my sort of what I'm wholesaling at, what I'm happy at. If I put that into a shop
Mhm.
and they're taking 50% sales commission, that's the amount I'm guessing I'm happy with that for the time making. And then that basically is doubled for my actual retail price, to give a point where hopefully, if a market is doing well, I'm making a profit. I'm covering all the market costs and making a profit from going above and beyond covering that cost.
Yeah.
Okay, so Chicago's minimum wage is $15.40,
Mm-hmm.
but in the suburbs it's closer to 14.
Right. Yep. So minimum wage is definitely not a countrywide
I think it's
thing here in the U.S.
different
It's definitely state by state and even county by
city.
county. You know.
Yeah, city and county.
All right. So I'll bring up some numbers to actually. No, I don't actually have one over here right
Okay, great.
now. I know I get taken upstairs, I think. So, to try and put some context into some of this discussion and lead this further even, and talk through some of the points of how I decided to calculate this, and where we landed, and why I chose to look at what I looked at. I will bring up the numbers. But I'll start by mentioning, right. Uh, I don't know if I need to mention this one, but I'm not bringing this up to brag, right? I don't think these numbers are braggadocious. And I'm also not not bringing it up to brag, not bringing it up to make anyone feel bad, like, oh, the poor starving artist or whatever. Like, it's really, this is really just informational, right? I'm bringing up literal factual numbers for context. That's it, right? Um, so I just put that out there. Uh, bury the lead here a little bit. Once we get into how much you made per hour, I don't think they're that impressive. It also doesn't take into account absolutely every cost, right? It's like we're going to hit an hourly talking about what the materials used for those things sold are. We're going to talk about an hourly with the time used to make those things, but it is not all the materials that we bought in the year. It's not all the time we spent in the year, right? It is literally just that slice. So that's definitely a lens, right? Because it's like if you make 200 pens in a year and you sell 50, do you account for all the materials for 200, or do you account for just the 50 you sold? The reason I decided to go for just what I sold is because I figure that both the time and the materials that I have in current stock are just assets, right? The way you would list assets
Yeah.
in any business. So it's like those are
Yeah,
just profits that haven't been
your stock in hand
cost.
has no true value until it sells.
Right. So
Yep. Not cost.
yep. So anyway, but it's like I know that depending on how you choose to do the accounting, you could either attribute the loss of time or the loss of materials there, and that's how it works for taxes, and it's going to work for taxes. But for actually understanding like your outgoing, what you're actually benefiting, we're not talking about business profits here. We're talking about the market sliver of it, right? At least that's what I was looking at, right? Because I think that when you start talking about into net profit of a business, you end up looking into more things, and this all gets kind of muddied, right? Especially the time spent. So
Especially
a lot of this analysis here for me was thinking about time spent to potential earnings, and trying to figure out how to understand and optimize. So, all right, we're gonna.
Yeah, I think looking at straightforward business accounts, regardless of your accounting system, can be somewhat misleading as to what's going on. I can use cash accounting for my business because of the level of turnover I've got. I'm not required to use double entry.
I'm trying to get more.
If I paid an accountant, double entry would probably be a better system for me.
Take us out.
But it gives a very misleading idea because like anything I've bought, like big machinery, doesn't show as a depreciating asset on my accounts. It's just a cash upfront payment. So just looking at your tax return accounts can be incredibly misleading as to the true nature of what you're making and what you've got in assets and things like that.
Does anybody know how to zoom in on Google Sheets? Oh wait, don't I just try zooming here? There we go. There we go. This will get us closer. Now I can't find anything on this sheet, but okay, here we go. All right, so if we want to try and surprise some stuff, I don't know. So this right here, right, gross revenue. So this was the total that we made in sales for the whole year. Our year started in April, March was our first show, right? We had like a smattering of shows, or like
one in March.
One in March. We may
None
have
in
had one,
April.
none in April. Like I have it all tracked. I just don't remember it totally. And then in May we actually started doing some repeat shows. We had 25 in total. This is what we made in sales. Top line. So this is top line gross revenue sales, $9,100.
I don't think that I'm responsible for finding them and scheduling them. So if they're really good, I'm like, yes. And if they're really bad, I'm like, oh, I was kind of iffy on it. I didn't know. Taking a chance. There's some we did last year that we know we're not doing again this year.
Yep.
But there's also some we're going to take a chance on again. But finding them, that's the hard part.
$9,000, not an insignificant amount of money. My goal for the year for this number when we started back in March was like, if we hit 5K, like I'll consider the year a success. So for like the goal that I had at the start of the year, not knowing at all how the year would progress, what to expect, how good we would do, anything like that, I feel that I definitely met and exceeded that goal. Of course, when I saw, it's like we have monkey brains, we all do, but like when I saw that this number was already past 5K, I was like, maybe we can hit 10.
Ooh, that's good, Allison.
And then
they're going to be doing their first.
Ooh, Allison's going to be selling my first art fair in March. That's awesome. I wish you luck. And
it is a big learning experience.
Well, Allison does more high-end stuff, and I'm assuming the art fair you're doing is probably going to be higher-end pieces as well. So that's going to have a whole set of new like rules or concepts or things that may work or not work in comparison to what we do, I think.
Well, our goal is to try to get to
not
elevate. Just craft fairs, but to get into more artisan type markets.
Yep. So I don't know, Owen. Like you, so I guess the other thing I've heard to do is context. Like, why are we even qualified to talk about any of this? I did say this is our first year doing it. We just did a lot of events. Owen, you've been doing it for how many years?
About 7.
7 years. So and so you've been doing like the outdoor shops, right? For 7 years.
Mainly outdoors. A few. I've done indoor ones. I occasionally do indoor ones, but predominantly my events are outdoor events. I do a few larger weekend events, 2-day, 3-day events. Not so many of those.
Yep.
Um, and then yeah, I've got couple of shop outlets and online as well. But first and foremost, it's the 1 day kind of markets that take place once a month in a different town. And I go to about, on average, about 6 a month of those.
And you're starting. I mean, you're going. I don't know if you're gonna have 6 this month. I know your first one is this weekend, this upcoming weekend here.
First one's this Sunday, and I think that's the only one I'm doing in February.
Okay, so definitely a ramp up as the year goes.
Yeah.
Right, you probably hit your point. Where do you start hitting your like standard 6 a month? Do you think?
February will be 6 a month, but they're a little bit of a lost leader. And sorry, March will be 6 a month, but
Okay.
they're a little bit of in my mind, they're a bit of a lost leader. February, March, I will make a small profit generally, but it really is a small profit.
Yeah.
Across those 6 events. And obviously, clearly, numbers of what you're selling are entirely related to the number of events you're selling at.
Right.
It would be great if you could go to 6 events and make £2,000 a month profit out of those.
Sure.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
But being absolutely realistic, you're probably going to have, if you go to 15 events in a month, that might be more the mark to actually start getting £2,000 profit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, profit, right? Because again, this is not profit, right? This is just top line gross revenue.
This is
That's it, right?
Yeah. So thinking of the people I know who make a living out of doing markets, almost all of them are couples who one goes to one market, another goes to the other market, and that is what they do each way. So each weekend they're doing 4 markets.
Wow. That's a grind. That
And
sounds like a grind.
I don't want to do
yeah.
Right.
So it's sort of the people who make a full-time living out of it almost exclusively are couples or adults with grown-up children, and they're covering at least 2 markets every day over the weekends.
Wow.
Maybe retirement.
Maybe. We'll see. Did you? I don't know how you want to jump in. I know you have some numbers. I don't know if you want to try and correlate or you want to do yours after. How do you want to go about it? We didn't really discuss because we're professionals.
So, I mean, looking across the year, let's say I start really selling in March, and fairly consistent. Well, some years it's been as low as £400-500 gross in March across 6 markets.
Okay.
And that literally is just covering costs.
Yeah.
The reason I do March is to be seen. It's no joke in saying that the big money period is October, November, December. And there are some people who are turn up in those, but I kind of like to be seen through the year. I take the lower profit markets at the start of the year as people get to know me. People will specifically come to buy their Christmas presents from me because they see me through the year.
Yep.
So that's kind of how I view it. Conceivably, I could just do markets 3 months of the year and make pretty much the same amount of money over the whole period. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about your experience. I definitely had the experience where, not only you could take those as marketing, right? But even just being there, even the markets where we did bad, right? I feel like you have to balance them out. Number one, like they average each other out. Like you can't take just the good ones and never have a bad one. Like you're at some point going to have a bad market.
Yeah.
And so then it turns into a numbers game. And also at some of these bad markets, I ended up making connections with people that placed orders, right, for large batch orders later in the year. And so to
Yes.
me, that was like, it just says like that's exactly why you should be, right? Because you don't know who you're going to meet. You just have to try and make those connections then, right? Every interaction with somebody, assuming that they're either an on the fence buyer or, they know what they want, and then they're not just purely like a looky loo, or they're not purely there to fight with you. Um, you know, all of those
I've not
people
had any of those so far.
have what run into people willing to fight. I mean, like to argue about prices, yeah.
Prices,
We
yes.
we've
Prices,
definitely hit
yes,
it.
but arguing like over an item, no.
Yeah.
Not unless they're like friends and like, I want that. If you're not gonna get that, oh, you got that.
Yeah. No. When I'm talking about argumentative, it's more like how could you charge X for Y, right? Whatever. They're not worth
Because
your
it's worth
time,
it.
but they do exist.
But building the
Building the relationships
Yeah.
with everybody else has been highly worthwhile.
not just customers though, other vendors is important as well.
Oh, 100% of the vendors. And the
Because
number of people, the number of sales I've had to other vendors who've, especially, or they've recommended to people, oh, this is the guy you want to go to
yeah.
get pens. This is the guy you want to go to for pendants.
Mm-hmm.
Or, even, one person I see at markets all the time. I don't think she might have bought one thing from me in the past. I got an email start of January. It's like, oh, so I've got one of my colleagues retiring this week.
Yep.
Mhm.
What have you got available? Can you do me a
Yep.
pen?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
get easily the go-to person.
In the post tomorrow, please.
Right.
Right.
You become it's the entire marketing principle, right? It's the number of impressions that you can have on someone. And you're not going to make an impression on them if you're not present. And so, yeah, because you become that person in their brain that they're like, why did she think of you, right? Because she saw you repeatedly, bought one thing from you, had a good experience. One of the coolest things I think that one of the coolest experiences we had was anybody who ever came up, and this happened a few times, and they bring their friends to show them our stall, right, or our booth or whatever it is, and you're just like, oh, this is the person that I bought this from, they make great work, like, and then they end up buying something too, and like that's such a good feeling, like, and they happen on your slow days and they happen on your busy days, but you do have to be there to be able to make the connection.
Yeah, we haven't done a 2-day markets.
Yeah.
But the 2-day markets that we have done, we've had people come back
the next day.
The next day. I saw the thing, I hope it's still here. Or like at Christmas, the one little girl whose earrings got chewed up by the dog.
That's the worst one with 2-day markets is people who browse the first day, go back to buy the second day, and discover that the one thing they wanted is already sold.
Yeah.
You smugly say to them, if you bought it yesterday.
Sorry, I have this thing very similar. You try. You do what you can, of course. All right, so top line revenue, right? We tangented, and I'm sure that's going to happen if you. The top line revenue, we have 9,100. So event costs, right, is one of the first things that I took out, right? Very easy. What did it cost to go to the table? And if you take travel in, I mean, most of our shows were very, very local. Owen, I know that you sometimes travel and stay at a hotel overnight to do multi-day shows.
Yeah.
Right? I think that would all bake into here.
If we did not have a large zoo in our house, we would definitely opt to stay overnight at some places and not have to get up very early the next day to be traveling over an hour to get to the venue as well.
I mean, I've got to be honest, on the stuff I go to stay at a hotel, I do take that hotel cost with a pinch of salt in my costings, because generally I don't have to have gone to that event. I've gone to it because I enjoy doing it, and it turns into a bit of a holiday. I've got the evenings and things to go to a part of the country I don't normally go to.
Sure.
So, I
it's
did
like a vacation a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Like end of last year, I did the 5-day market in Liverpool, which was a terrible event.
Yeah.
I could have driven that every day and done rush hour traffic into the city and paid for parking, but I chose to go for a hotel and have a week, go to a show in the evening and stuff like that. So, on paper, clearly that hotel cost goes into my business costs, and I avoid paying taxes by reducing my profit margins.
Right.
But in my own mind, I don't really count that hotel cost as a cost of being at that event, because that was a not strictly necessary business decision to do. It's a perfectly justifiable business decision, but it wasn't really a strictly necessary one.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's totally fair. I think that these are probably the 4 common things like that you should take into account here. Uh, obviously the cost of the table, or the cost of entry, the cost of lodging. You know, this list, like what you want to put into this and what you want to say is personal versus business, regardless of how you file it on your taxes, right?
Yeah.
That's more of a business cost, unless you have to have specific additional
Some
insurance for that event. But
some events require insurance and proof of insurance before they'll consider you, for the ones I've run into.
All of my
yeah, all of our
events
events.
Yeah.
require insurance one
Not
way or
all of our
another.
events. The majority of our events.
Right.
Some of the smaller
Yeah.
ones have not, but a lot of them.
I think like what I was pointing out, it's okay. Is on this list. This would be the types of things you should be tracking if you're doing it purely from a business perspective, right? And taking like the enjoyment out of it, right? If we shouldn't be putting the level of enjoyment that we put into our prices, right? I don't think we should be necessarily discounting it from events and costs of those events either. Now, obviously, you run your business however you want to. You think about it however you want, right? It's again, it goes back to that initial thing. What are you trying to get out of this, right? Are you trying to just cover your costs, or are you trying to grow a business? If you're trying to like grow a business financially, I think that properly tracking and attributing all these things in to see if you're profitable is probably important. Now, in this number, all I have in this number, because we didn't have lodging, all I have in this number is our table costs.
We didn't track food because we
didn't track food because
we're
like
considering
you,
that right now.
I'm like, oh, we're out for the day, we're just gonna eat, right? So that's just like an entertainment expense. And even like I put employees here kind of tongue in cheek, but like our son goes to all of the events with us. We give him an amount of money to be there at the event, right? Just to kind of instill that working ethic into him. But technically, like that's another cost, that I have up front at every event.
At a farmer's feud.
Farmers who feud all the time over prices.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I mean, I don't really count food. It is a legitimate taxable expense. I could put my £3.50 meal deal that I get from Tesco on every market.
That's the difference. See, when we go, it's like $20 a person we end up paying at some of the events. Like
there's only one market that I regularly go to, one of the street food traders, and get lunch from, and I pay about £10 a day from getting breakfast and lunch from him.
Lunch for me ends up costing like 50 for the family.
Yeah.
That's usually what ends up getting laid out.
Yeah.
It's like if we're at an event or a festival or something, it's like, yep, I just anticipate spending about $50 on lunch.
Yep. Did give, but
yeah. Anyway, so that's what could go in there, right? For me, it was really just the table costs that went in here. These other things could go in here to account for your costs as well. These were my material costs for the year. So $1,600 in literal physical material that went into the items that I sold, right? This is I least thinking about. I did. Well, no. See, so I'm going to remind you that these costs are just the material costs for the things that sold, not the material costs for everything we bought for the year.
Got it.
So of this 9,000 in sales, this is literally the slice of the materials in that sale.
No, I bought more than that.
Because I know that I paid more than that. I mean, I paid roughly that in orders for pen kits alone, right? I mean, one of my pen kit small orders was $1,000. So it's like, I know, and like fabric, what? What, you don't remember that?
Recovering chemists, do they have the same dilemmas? Surely their dilemma is, how much can I get away with charging for this hot dog?
Oh, we're talking about the vendor selling $20 hot dogs have the same dilemmas as the crafters. Yeah.
I don't know.
So Allison, in this,
at what point will someone turn around and say no?
That's their dilemma. Allison. So Allison asked, where did I account for signage, display, furniture, etc.? None of that is accounted for in any of this. Because so if you were here at the beginning, and if you weren't, I'm sorry, so I'll repeat. right? This was really a cost to me, interested in um my cost not as the business, right? Because that's where business would talk about signage or marketing or the table or the, the physical tables that I bring, the tent that I bought, the tablecloths I bought, right? The displays that I bought. To me, those are like one-time business costs,
Mhm.
right? And so like I'm taking them there. And so I didn't take a portion of them or a percentage of them and put them here into the sales, but for a business it absolutely is a cost that you should that goes into your bottom. This is not the end number at the end of this is not going to be like our bottom net profit for the year, right? Because it is going to take into account sales tax, but it's not going to take into account taxable income, like taxes will end up paying to the government. And it's not taking into account any of the like one-time fixed costs, like the cost of the business license, that we had to pay for, the
Yeah.
cost of any of the the tents or the setups or anything we had to buy.
Well, and our setups changed a lot too over the course of the season, depending on what markets we were at.
We tried some things.
We
I mean,
tried different things. We upgraded some stuff.
I will absolutely say the cost of tents, tables, tablecloth, signage, displays, because I already have a wood shop, right? I ended up making a lot of things, and all of that stayed in probably the under $700 range, which is still, $700 is still a lot of money, but most of that was like a $250 tent.
Or we repaired and made it work, like the tablecloth that ripped.
Right, yeah, the tablecloth that ripped, exactly. So, yeah, so that's, I don't know. You have any thoughts here, Owen? I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot.
This is the most
Yeah, I
he's
mean, so
talked all week.
there are a lot of big costs like that, and as much as I would like to think of the gazebo as being a one-off cost, I know I would need to buy new sidewall panels for it because they're not
Mhm.
destroyed, but they're looking glossy,
Right.
and are not a good representation. The roof will probably do another year before I have to replace that.
Yeah.
The tables I don't mind so much about because I always get a cloth over them. No one sees the tables once they're up.
Sure.
Right.
But so a lot of things like that, it'd be nice to say those big things are one-off costs, but honestly,
They might have repeating costs, right? But I guess I didn't know how to properly work them into this model at least, right? I could definitely work
yeah.
them into a business line item model. But what I was trying to calculate here, thinking about the actual item, like what am I making from an item? I didn't know how to take that in here because, and I guess that's really it, right? They're definitely something that you have to attribute to your business, or to your net overall
I
cost.
guess in a way, you could kind of attribute it to an item by taking your annual depreciation on your assets and then splitting that between the items that you've sold.
Okay, that's
So
not a bad
if
idea.
you say your gazebo is going to last you 5 years and it costs you 250, then that's 50 a year depreciation on that, and then share that amongst everything, and
Yeah.
that
So
could feed into that model as what your cost is per item of selling.
yeah. Do you think you should put also like your insurance cost, and I mean, like, should I leave that in business? Do you think that should also go into here? Do you think doing it this way is even, I guess just not accounting for enough? Um and it should account all the
Well,
businesses.
I think if you're trying to come up with per item details, then you probably need to put all your business running costs into that per item. If that's the way you're going to be looking at it and saying, how do I split this? But then obviously we know those costs are actually a fixed price. It's only valid for that particular year. How did that fixed price go into those items? You sell twice as many items, then it's a smaller percentage of those items that's covering that fixed price.
Right. Okay. I will, and then as I said at the beginning, right? I wanted to have a discussion too. Like maybe I'm not taking everything into account that I should to think about this. I know I'm not from a business perspective, so I like know what I've left out. But in trying to think of the how much should I make by going to a market, because and maybe the physical items for sure should go in, and the other ones could be um, split among your in-person sales and your online sales, because the online sale doesn't have any event cost, right? It has your website cost, which also isn't listed here.
Yeah.
So, maybe the tables and the tents and the physical items or physical sales makes a lot of sense to put in here. At which point I would, rough estimate right now without going and getting exact details, I would put that number at about $700. So we can talk,
Yeah.
I can just subtract
I
that.
think on the flip side, in the pricing of products, that's where in your manufacturing, you're saying, well, we've got the raw materials, we've got the time, we've got the power sources and heating and
Right.
everything like that,
Right.
and we've got a 10% allowance for all the sundries which we need to be able to do the selling side of it.
Yeah, because you're right. I didn't take into account any of my tools. Right, that's not listed out here, but those are absolutely necessary for doing it. All right, so these two are similar. I'm just going to kind of move us along. These two are similar, right? This is just processing fees for credit card processing fees and taxes. They don't need to be split out. I just have had them split out in my data anyway. Um, using Square, they break it out for you. You use Zettel, I'm sure that breaks it out for you too. 8-bits bot.
Yes. I was just looking at that. You got an 8-bit cheer from the 8-bit bot.
I got an 8-bit cheer from the
With some
8-bit
8-bit
bot.
comment, which maybe need LiDAR in here to translate.
Should we? All right. We can actually do this, right? What is it? Binary to English? Binary translator? I shouldn't be doing this on screen, should I? Because we don't know what this is going to be.
You don't know what he said.
You could.
Yeah, I could technically do that really quick.
There we go.
And oh no, binary to text. Wow, okay. It's not really bad. It says ChatGPT is a noob. I mean, I know what ChatGPT is, but like what a random thing. All right. All right. So processing fees, taxes, those are taken out as well. So really, so far we're like here, minus this, minus this, minus this, minus this, right? So we have a lot of minuses, right? So this gets us to a number, and that number is this. So we went from $9,100 to, if those are my only costs, right? And we talked about how it might not be. We're at almost $5,900. So then from there, the $5,900 net profit, and again, we had more expenditures of other materials we purchased. I purchased a new laser specifically for making stuff to sell for the business, right?
That
so
did
it's
happen.
like those will definitely go into my expenses from like tax purposes for write-offs. I just didn't know if it was appropriate to put them here, but again, this is where I'm not an accountant. It is taking that assumption of I own all the tools, I own the things that need to be made from like a continued, what would it take, what do I continuously make after I account for that cost? So $5,800 net profit, $5,900. And then the calculations I did for making time for an event time. So event time was pretty easy, right? I put into every event, right, the number of the hours for the length of that event, a setup, a teardown time, and then a travel time. And so this is I put both halves. So this is how I ended up tracking it to calculate my true event cost. I think it's really easy to do this one, and it's easy to forget about these two.
Yeah.
So I definitely think
we know where the open time and close time are.
Yeah.
I mean, the other bit that even adds into that is how early are you getting there for setting up? Do you have an hour from having set up to when the event officially opens that you're dragging your heels, having a coffee, and is that actually part of the time that you're spending there and ought to be accounted for?
I definitely think so, right? I mean, this is all pretty generic, but this is also where, again, accurate tracking here, it definitely matters. We were usually there about an hour and a half ahead of time, hour and a half, hour 15 ahead of time, and then you tear down quicker than you set up, right? We would tear down in 30 to 45 minutes. And
especially when you sell things.
Right. And so like I average this out to 2 hours basically for every event. Any zeros in here like tracking for like this was an ornament commission that I made, right? So
didn't go anywhere.
Don't have to go anywhere for that one. The travel times I also put in the travel to and from. Again, most of our stuff was very local. This is even probably generous from a travel time perspective, but like the other ones that were a half an hour one way or an hour one way, definitely did. So if you're thinking about tracking for your event times, right, I would just take into account all of the event, the before and the after as well. Don't just track your event hours here.
Welcome back, Boyd.
because as you can see, right, that added another 60% onto the 100 hours we spent at the events. This was also time spent at the event. Okay.
Yeah,
So
that time tracking is something I'm really bad at doing. Really bad. I know in my head, but I can tell you what any of the events I do basically are in terms of travel time and setup time.
Sure.
But I don't track it.
Right. And honestly, I mean, I went back and did all this, right? I didn't do this as we did it. I tracked I had the event location and then, the hour starting, and we had a schedule that we posted somewhere. So it's like you end up with these these places of record for what you're going to earn or what you did.
That was a big part of it. We had a schedule that we handed out when we were at the farmers market for anybody interested in finding us, because we didn't do it every weekend. We did it like, and we still plan to do some markets less, because we were talking about presents before, but also that FOMO, they don't buy it now, they might not be able to get it for a couple weeks if we're not back before then, is a thing too. And at least at the farmers markets, we're there every week, seeing us every week, then they're likely to just keep walking past, even if we have new stuff.
Yeah,
they're not gonna.
Yeah, because you're attending a weekly market at the same location, aren't you? Rather than in those instances.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so that's our dull market here, right? These are our weekly or bi-weekly. We set them up. There were a couple of ones where we were back to back. We back to back to the end of the year. From here, our last 5 were all like back to back weekly markets, and before that, we tried to do every other week with a couple of crossovers where it was every third instead. We had a 3-week gap.
Well, we were trying other markets, like.
Yep. And
we
so
definitely wanted to squeeze other stuff in.
And I'm sure you hear, well, maybe you hear this, Owen, like, oh, are you going to be back here next week or next weekend or anything, like, or like 2 weeks from now, whenever it is?
Yeah, next month. Or apart from people who don't know what the market is, and is this on tomorrow? No.
Yeah.
I only do monthly markets at the moment. None of mine are weekly events. I'm just happening to do once a month. They literally are only monthly markets. And even then, I kind of sometimes. First year I did sales. I made a point of not doing the same market every month and trying to jump around to different locations and try different places. And then I slowly sort of shifted from doing that to just having the set of markets, which is the same every month. In all honesty, I don't see a great deal of difference between the two routes. There are so many factors, especially on an outdoor event, that affect how the sales at a particular market go.
Yeah.
You're as likely to have a bad day because it was raining and Man United were playing,
Sure.
as because people weren't wanting to buy your products and you saturated the market. So.
And that's where, I can definitely, with a sample size that we did at the Dole, have an idea of what my good sales were for those. And if I wanted to take notes and try and add other elements in there, I will say I didn't, right? But if I wanted to take notes and say like, oh, today was a sunny day, or I could definitely go back and track the weather for those and be like, oh, on sunny days we did this, and on rainy days we did this, and on when it was hot out or when there was a sports event or something, you could definitely do that. I haven't done that yet, but I might, right? Especially in year 2.
I think that is certainly a favorite pastime of market traders, speculating as to why today's been such a bad day.
Sure.
Right. And you will hear every reason and the diametric opposite of every. It's a bad day because it's too cold and wet.
Right.
Then the next month it's a bad day because it's too hot and sunny.
Exactly. No, I mean, so it'd just be, for me, it's like it's potentially interesting from a knowledge standpoint. Like, is there a correlation, right? Instead of just being like anecdotal about it, if you actually have the data to analyze, you can say. I can say that our festivals always did better than our weeklies or monthlies. Right?
I will say that it's always a bad day if you don't have a smile on your face.
Yep.
Have to have the smile, even if you've been sitting there and nobody's buying anything. You still have to be just as nice to the first person as to the last. Otherwise, you're not going to sell a damn thing.
Right. So I was just going
I get
into
away with that slightly more. We don't have quite the same high expectation of happy, smiley customer service.
and you know what, and some events too,
It doesn't harm though.
in the second half of the year, I tended to notice sometimes if I was some events and some locations were better if she was the primary salesperson or I was, right? More events, it was better if she was the primary salesperson versus me. But we just, sometimes I think when you have the luxury of having a partner, right, understand that one person either might be having a better day, or if you're in an area that you don't normally go to, maybe the other gender does better in that area for some reason. And it was never like,
or maybe more approachable for some reason.
it was never like a gender, an opposite gender, like she has to talk to men, I have to talk to women, or she has to talk to women, I have to talk to men. It was never that. It was like there were just events where it was like I would go the first hour and a half, and no matter how like people would just like avoid, and then I would like stand back, and within 20 minutes she'd be like, "Oh, sale, 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 sale." It's like, all right, like I'm out,
Because she was watching when the coach load came in.
right?
Said, it's okay, I'll take over now. She saw
Right.
the wallets coming. That was no. I mean, one of the interesting things you get again with the really professional two people out selling different venues,
Yeah.
and they've all got Zettel or Square or SumUp. Guarantee if someone's not having a good day, they're spending half of a day tracking sales with the other
Oh,
person on the app
Hitting with your
and
hearing
just going
aids.
either, oh, at least not doing as badly as they are, or oh my god, they've sold £4,000. I've only sold one bottle of rum.
oh wow.
You know,
We have a rule, and I don't look at total sales until we're done packing up.
Yeah. We pack up, we get to the car, and then all of us can look
You
and
can get
see
a
what our day was like.
you sometimes think you have like a good feeling of it, but at least when there's two, you're a solo person selling, so obviously you're going to know every sale you make. But for us, right,
yeah.
sometimes it's like, oh, you sold that, I didn't even see that, like I was at the bathroom or walking around the event or whatever. So there
I
are
was buying other stuff with the money you
with
just
the money
made.
we just made, right? Yeah,
Well done, you sold that one, but how much did you spend on the other thing?
yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
There are definitely benefits to that, to having a partner, right? And to anybody out there, if you have somebody you can take with you, I highly recommend it.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
not only 8 hours on top of a two, another 3 hours of driving forwards and backwards. It's a long day.
yeah,
It is a long day.
It's a really early, it's an incredibly early start. I leave the house about 7 in the morning, and you know what time I'm up normally. That's an early start. For normal people, that's like leaving the house at 5 in the morning.
yeah,
Um, it's an hour's drive. It's a 45-minute setup, and then usually my mark is about a 6-hour day of selling. And on your own, that is a really long, tiring day.
Agreed.
yeah.
Boyd.
And Boyd talking about the setup too. Yeah, I don't know how you.
Agreed.
I mean, like,
even bathroom breaks, like leaving your stuff and going, like you have to be able to eat, you have to be able to go to the bathroom.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Working
mean,
that
I'm
in.
quite fortunate in where my markets are that I've never had any issue so far in just leaving the store. There's plenty of other people around who at least have half an eye open on what's going on.
I would say, yeah.
They're never going to be fully. It depends on who I'm next to. Some traders are brilliant and they will literally sell your products for you if you're not at your store.
Yeah.
Others will at least scare off the scary looking people.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true. We've done that too. If we had somebody next to us leaving, we kind of just pay attention to make sure nobody's lingering too long and kind of, other stuff's getting taken while
Yeah.
going to the bathroom. There's nothing worse than somebody coming up right after you take a bite of lunch and then they're like, hey, and you're like,
Right.
Oh yeah, that is the worst. So you always got your pack of sandwiches and you sort of got halfway through. It's like, oh, but someone else wanting to talk. Hide that away.
And you already waited because, every few minutes somebody else is coming up before and you're like, I really need to eat right now.
Yeah.
Because we've done
And especially if you
markets
just bought something hot.
separately. I'm sorry.
Especially if you just bought something hot and you know it's going to
Yes.
be cold by the time you actually stop talking to someone.
Absolutely. And we've done markets separately too, where one of us was sick and we went. Luckily, we still were able to bring our son, but always super helpful.
Yeah.
He's
Egg down the
helpful,
front
but
void.
like
That's
set
the
up,
worst
tear
one.
down. But like he gets bored, and I do too. We manage it better, but he's off
Right.
doing something, and you're like, I'm starving.
Yep. So to come back to here, right? There are 2 lines here, and I'm gonna call this out now. The reason there are 2
Yeah.
lines is because
Sauce on your face and
oh
lettuce
yeah,
in your
lettuce
teeth.
in my teeth, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, since we're on that topic, like I feel that I try to be strict about it too, and I'm not trying to be butthead, but it's like I feel like
Sometimes.
if you're at the event, if I'm gonna spend 8 hours there, or you're gonna spend 11 hours there, like I feel like you should be there to sell. Like you're there for a reason. Like you shouldn't be uh goofing off and joking around and all those little things that add up to a customer either wanting to walk into your booth or not walk into your booth, or wanting to talk to you or not talk to you, or like or like making a sale or not making a sale. Especially if at the end of the day you're gonna look at it and you're gonna be like, man, my sales sucked today. But you were like choosing to not engage with people, to not smile to people, to not have witty banter with them, to like eat in front of them and have sloppy food on your face or whatever, or like leave your booth. We see this too. People like are solo manning their booth, leave their
Constantly
booth
leaving.
to just go wander around the market. and I know you've done that on stream, Owen, but you're at least on stream doing it once. Like they just do it all day. We've watched
Yeah.
them like just get up
I
and
do.
wander off.
If it's a quiet market, I do it. If there's no one around, I will go for a wander.
Yeah.
If it's quiet, that's
But
different.
that's because it's quiet and there's no one around.
Yeah. Again, one of the benefits of working with a partner is the ability to do that. Be like, hey, I'm gonna go walk around for 20.
I suppose the other side as well is I'm probably one of the best known traders on the markets I go to amongst other traders, because I always go around and chat to people at the start or the end.
Yeah.
One way or another, I've spoken to probably a quarter of the other traders on the market every time.
All right. There you go. That network. Your network is your net worth. Is that what they say? Something like that. So anyway, I had 2 lines here really for this event time. And because the reality here is that do we calculate it at 161 hours for the event? That's for one person, right? But we're actually 2 people. Whereas the making time is, since it's per item, it's either her making it or me making it. So like the making time is accurate, but the event time, since there are 2 people, this is really kind of the real number of time spent, right? Because it's time spent between 2 people. And then if we just take this net profit against, the hours spent for the year, we're at $10.71 an hour for 2 people. If it was just one of us somehow doing all this, it would be 15, 17. It's not bad. It is bad from you're not making a living off of it, or you're not going to make a living off that.
It's better than my prediction. I said $5.
She said $5 an hour, right? But it's not bad from the aspect of a side hustle, I guess. And it's not bad from a starting point either.
I don't think it's bad from.
I mean, I suppose a question of that is, I'm not doing the maths in my head, and I can't actually see the figures because of the way this lays out the screens, and I've only got a small screen in.
The top one was 15, so if it was a solo person, it would be $15.17 an hour. The bottom is $10.71. $10.71.
How many hours a week is your hours working out at?
So if we take the bottom one, which is where I think it's the most accurate, total for the year, hours spent between the 2 of us. Is that what your question is?
I was trying to work out how, as a full-time equivalent job.
It is about a quarter of that. So there are about 550 hours in a year. There's 2,080 hours in 40-hour a week. 2 weeks vacation a year. So it's about a quarter, right? Again, if you could correlate that and multiply that by 4, even make 4 times what we made, it's still not a great.
And that's an unknown as well, isn't it? Because if you spent a 40-hour week making and selling, how much more could you make through efficiencies in manufacturing? How much more could you be selling through if you're making that much wholesaling it out? completely unknown. That's
right. And as a reminder, this is profit. This is after sales tax, but before income tax. And we also didn't account for any of the static costs. The cost of tent, the cost of tables, the cost of signage, marketing.
Materials.
We didn't take all the materials into account, right? Only the materials for the items that were sold, based on the idea that the remainder of what we still have on hand is our assets, right? Because I still have a bunch of wood on hand. I still have a bunch of pen kits on hand. To make more pens, I don't need to pay more money, right? I've already paid that money, so it's a one-time sunk cost. It was interesting here, right?
Yep.
Looking at these two, it was about a 40-60 split, or a 65.
Machinery, tools.
Oh, this is
like the laser, all that kind of stuff.
And even on the materials that are used directly in manufacturing, it's difficult to really apportion things like the micas and the dyes as to exactly how long they're going to last for your resin casting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing the absolutely precise measurement of how much mica goes into different color pours.
Say something.
No, I was trying to remember what I was going to say about the making. It's not a bad hourly if you're going to be enjoying your passion and you're going to make anyway. How many pens can you use of your own and you enjoy making them? How many bags can I carry? I can carry one.
Right.
How many pieces of jewelry can you wear at one time? Like, if you're going to keep making the things, it's not bad to be money doing what you're enjoying to make. Because let's face it, we're all creators, we're all artisans.
Yeah. And Boyd, so I'm going to catch up on chat a little bit. So Boyd said, and machinery and stuff as well, right? New machinery and tools, consumables and glue, like Owen said, micas or resin, right? None of that is taken into, well, not none of it. Like resin or the wood, I do have accounted for in material costs, only with the made sold stuff. But like the tools, the machines, those aren't brought into this model here, right? This model is a biased model, but it's trying to consider, if I already have the things to do the job, right? If I already own the tools, here's what I can make. Here's what I can continue to churn out, right? It could be made better, right? To add in depreciation, as in TW, what do you charge for wear and tear on machinery and tools?
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely could or should be taken into account. Should be taken into account. Is it easy to take into account on a by item basis? No. But what we haven't looked at, and the thing that I'm going to get to next is, now, I wanted to know like about a per hour rate, right? But that per hour rate only tells you what you did, not necessarily what you could do, where you're spending your time, right? And that's going to go into this. Sorry, sheet. It's all exploded now, so I don't remember. All right, we're gonna zoom out really quick so I can see everything.
At the end of the day, I wanted honest numbers to help encourage others,
right? I wanted honest, right? To try, or to try, right? To give some real numbers here, and absolutely willing to slice these up in any way if somebody's interested in one thing or another. But I think the last thing that I was going to bring up from a technical number standpoint was talking about the per item material cost, making time, what you can make per hour, what the margin on that item is, not accounting for time, right? So like what your margin on cost of goods versus goods sold is where I was going to go next. Let me just.
I'll just say
we'll blow this up a little bit more and cover.
I mean, no, that's improved the stream. That's the definitely, you see.
Right.
But I think what with the machinery and tools and everything like that cost, that is kind of where your gross profit concept comes in. If you're doing a straightforward retail business and you know what you're buying in at on a product, and you say, I want all my products onto 50% gross profit.
Yep.
Out of that 50% gross profit, you're then paying your staff, you're paying your electric, you're paying your rent. Yep. That's literally how a shop will do its pricing calculations. They'll go, this is a high turnover product, we can do this on a 5% gross profit. This is a low turnover product, we do this on a 50% gross profit.
Yeah.
And that gross profit encompasses all their costs, and hopefully at the end of all their costs, there's still some extra
Money at the
profit that goes into the business.
Yeah. I've been watching, so like along that line, right? One thing that kind of inspired me or spurred me on to look at these numbers in that way, and then share them is I've been watching a lot of freaking Shark Tank and hearing. Don't laugh at me. Why are you laughing?
I'm not.
Not so much Dragon's Den though, because they're too brutal.
Watching a lot of Shark
I've
Tank.
also watched Dragon's Den, and I've also watched Shark Tank Australia,
and
US, and whatever. Anyway, but no. So here's what I wanted to bring up from Shark Tank, not whatever drama there is or anything, but hearing.
That's why I'm laughing, because
watch some Shark Tank if you've never watched it before, and find a pitch or wait until you hear a pitch where somebody's like, "What'd you do in sales last year?" And they'll be like 2.2 million, and they'll be like, "Profit, negative 500,000," and you're like my brain exploded, not even knowing that existed, but like hearing, like if you watch a lot of Shark Tank, you hear that over and over and over again
without blinking an eye, without any
the question always comes up, like, are you profitable yet? They're like, no, we expect to be profitable next year. Oh, how much? 50K on like $2 million in sales. In $2 million in sales, they expect to profit $50,000.
Yep. How'd you raise it?
Right?
Friends and family gave it to you. What?
So, regardless of any of that, it was just like, okay, obviously, I'm not thinking about the game correctly if I want to think about it as a business. So that's why I started to do that. But go ahead.
How do you typically pack your items?
Oh, bins.
You have bins.
Yes, I could show you.
You just have big plastic bins, and we carefully put everything.
Yeah, and
do you mean, Boyd, pack as in to put in the car to take to events and bring back, or do you mean pack as in how do you present them to the customer when they purchase?
Where's Mark's their item? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought he was talking about pack to actually transport to and from the market. Oh, post-purchase packing for the customer. Yeah. Okay. Oh. I was off.
Well, we have. Are you talking about like shipping, or are you talking about?
I think we're talking about
market
markets.
In person. Yeah. We have all the packing. We have bags. We have boxes. We have paper to wrap up. We don't have a ton of fragile things.
And that's definitely something that could be taken into account as well. I know what I spent on packaging for the year, right? What I spent on bags to hand out and boxes to put things in, and that was around $200. So I could add that in as a cost, just like I could add the tables in or the tent in as a cost. But on a per item basis, it's going to be fairly low per item.
Well, and for taxes for this year, since it's our first year, all of that stuff will be included when we do that. So profit.
Yeah. and because the other challenge there is not every item gets a unit of packaging, right? It's that's like true. If somebody buys 4 things, they all go into one. Right, so yeah, that bag might have cost you 40 cents. We do paper. We do all brown paper. We do all brown paper. No plastic. Better, whatever. It's our shtick. It's our choice, right? It costs more, but yeah. So it's like those bags are expensive.
Some markets have been shopping and been making purchases already, so they don't ask for packaging either. They're gonna stick it in whatever else they've already purchased.
Yep. And then some people, when they're saying, it's like you can use that as an advantage too. When they're like, you hear them talking to somebody else and they say, oh, do you think this would make a good gift for so and so? Super easy to be like, oh, we have gift boxes for that.
It's not sometimes, it's all the time. Those things add up. And we had a few around Christmas that were like, oh, can I have the box and can you stick it in a bag? And I'm like, yes, I can.
Yeah.
Do I want to?
Yeah, no. We definitely don't automatically
for me on that one, obviously I give a very narrow product range, which makes my packaging life a lot easier.
Sure.
At a market, pendants go in a 75-25-25 box. So they're pre-mounted in it.
Yep.
Literally just flip the lid around and give them the box.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Earrings, small necklaces, they're in the smaller boxes, they're a little bit cheaper. So the larger boxes cost me about £1 a box printed if
Yeah.
I buy over 300 at a time. The smaller boxes are about 60p a box. Sorry, 70p a box printed. If I buy those about 100 at a time, I don't use as many of those. They would be cheaper if I was ordering 300, but I can't justify that on the number I go through at any one point in time.
Sure.
Pens, seam rippers, crochet hooks, they go in the little velvet pouches. They cost me 50p each.
Mhm.
The pens can go in a card box if they prefer. Generally, most people don't. Once or twice, you get someone who wants a gift that they can actually wrap. Those card boxes cost me 50p each.
Yeah.
I have a small supply of paper bags, the takeaway bags, the ones with a little looped handle,
Yep.
Right.
paper
Yep.
looped
Yeah.
handle
That's what
on
we use.
them.
Yeah.
Last time I bought those, which was about 4 years ago, I paid about £8 for a pack of 1,000.
Oh wow. That's a fantastic price.
Wow.
They are cheap and cheerful, and I just hand stamp a Woodcraft
Yeah.
by Owen logo on them.
We
But I
definitely
don't offer them. They're behind the store, but it's only if somebody asks for them specifically. Have you got a bag? I'll go. Oh, I can find you one.
and that's fine.
And there are. I know there's lots of people who everything goes in a bag because they have the opinion that bag has their branding on it. Everyone sees someone wandering around with a nice little bag, and the nicer the bag is, etc. But those bags cost £1, £1.50 a bag, and that's got to come somewhere and on the costing of it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, the really big ones, right? You take that into your marketing cost.
Oh, absolutely.
We do the same thing. Like we do the brown paper.
Yep.
We definitely don't get 1,000 bags for £8, but
No.
that'd be fantastic. Depending on the size of it, we usually get them by the 100, and
Mhm.
they range between like 12 and 26 for the large one. $26 for the large ones, I think, and $12 for the small ones.
And we use the large ones sparingly. Like we have more,
Mhm.
much smaller ones. And
It might even be higher than that.
we
I might
try very
be under.
hard not to use the bigger one.
Yeah, it was pretty early on when, it's like, so we have a third employee, right? Mr. Shannigan's Jr. there, where
Yeah.
he would try to offer
my God.
every packing material to every purchase for no matter what. We sell $5 rings. Be like, do you want a box for that?
Oh
Like,
my God.
that box costs 75 cents. You don't
Yes.
offer a 75-cent box on a $5 ring.
There are people who upsell the boxes. It's like, do you want a box of that for $2?
Sure. That's possible, but I've definitely found, like you found, we ask, right? We're like, do you need a bag? We don't ask if you need a box, right? I offer the box if I hear them talking about it as a gift, right?
Yeah.
To close the sale. That's
Right.
really what I look at it for, just to close that sale. Your pendants are already in boxes, right? And you put your pens in sleeves.
Yeah.
Honestly, like most people, like I offer the box or the sleeve for the pen. More people will take the box than the sleeve, and most people take nothing.
Yep.
Most
Give it
people
to
are
me,
like,
I'm
no,
gonna
I'm just gonna
stick it right
stick
in.
it right in my purse.
So,
Right?
so for me, it's the other way around. Definitely, most people take. So there's a choice of three things I offer. There's the sleeve, and they're the nicer velvet ones,
Yep.
not the
Yeah, same thing.
like 10 pence ones, which I have a whole stack of if anyone wants them. Then there's a box. They both come at the same price, and it's an either or on those. I would say probably 80% go for the sleeve, especially if it's for themselves or if they've got any common sense that the person's going to want to keep it, and the sleeve is better for keeping it in than the box. The
Sure.
box is nice to wrap, and that's about it. The third option, I've got the flip lid, nice velvet padded boxes,
Oh, okay.
and that's a paid for extra. I charge those at £4 a box. They cost me about £2.40 a box to buy.
Okay. That's and
So
I was thinking
that's
about
retail.
doing some laser cut boxes for like fancy gift boxes to do an upcharge
Oh
on,
yeah.
and we could offer that as something. But that's
It
so
says that they used to do the pen
10 boxes, but
boxes.
the sleeves are more economical. Yeah.
Agreed.
We are my pen box right now is technically a necklace box that just has the cotton in there. It's not really ideal for putting a pen in, which is why I even do want to do something a little more custom. I designed to be able to laser cut out of brown cardstock a pen box that you can fold up that will hold the pen in a channel in there, and it's actually really nice. And so that would be about the same cost as the sleeve, even a little bit less than the sleeve. Yeah, the sleeves are definitely, they're popular, right? But for my experience, it's either been nothing or a box, or some people want the sleeve and the box, and you're okay. Like I'm not gonna fight it at that point. Like okay, I'm out another 10 cents.
Some
Whatever.
people still don't know even after they walk away and they bring one or the other back.
That happened.
We've had that happen.
So some guy's like, oh yeah, I'd like a sleeve, and he like you give him a sleeve, and then like 5 minutes later he walked back and he's like, I'm not gonna use this here.
I had a lady do it too. There's been 2 times where that's happened.
I thought that was so interesting. All right, so to get into this,
wait, one more question. One more.
oh, for presentation, and you keep them to keep your pens in next year for long instead of throwing it away in the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they use.
Everybody's gonna vary.
Agreed, TW.
Right. Everybody's gonna vary it. So I
would put it in a.
Oh.
No, I would.
Turn this on. Okay. I turned it off. Okay. All right. So on a per item basis, right, I went through and I calculated just to give an idea, right? So we got our hourly, but the end of the day, like the hourly is going to go up if we're more successful in sales, right? And that's a good thing. So still wanting to know what items are kind of worth your time to make, knowing what's popular, that's great, right? How many did I sell for the year? But also like on a per item basis, and there were a few surprises in here for me, like how much am I making per hour, or what is my profit? There's two things, right? One, I calculated a per hour, and the other, I calculated a profit margin on cost of materials versus cost of goods sold. And these top lines here tend to be, I guess I should, you know what? We don't really, these, we can hide them.
Maybe.
And we don't need that. Okay, so then we can have this all on the same page. So, it's like, here's the price that I sell it for, listed here. Here's the cost of materials in the item. Here's the amount of time it costs me to make the item, which then allows me to calculate both my profit per hour and my margin of cost of goods versus cost of goods sold. So my margins on my pens are really nice, right? They tend to average in the 80, 85 range. My hourly varies, and I found it interesting because I thought like my fountain pen was going, being the highest cost item, but since it took me longer to make, and that's probably a symptom of me taking it more seriously, it's actually a lower profit per hour than anything else, and my profit margin is lower than any other pen as well. So I found that interesting. Aromatherapy necklaces are like, on the low end of my profit per hour. They're okay margins. Thorns over here needs to get a little bit better at her profit per hour and get faster at making some things, because her profit per hour is definitely lower.
Why are you spinning right now, actually?
Yeah. Where's the yarn?
I don't sell anything with yarn. That is like, I love fiber arts, but that is only for me because there is nothing profitable in that.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Her profit,
very
that is
difficult.
essential. There's so many things you could do, and you look at the figures of it, and it's like there's no profit in it. There's no, do it for fun, do it because you enjoy doing it, do it because you want the challenge.
It can be
but
profitable.
It's not a profitable thing to sell.
Right.
I'm just not as proficient in doing it with speed.
Or at least, until you're at a gallery stage quality and can charge gallery prices for it, it's not profitable to sell.
Sure.
That there is always going to be a market for those at a very high end if you're working at that very high end.
I do want to point out these. Like, I want to point out this item for sure. This is the wire ring. We sell it $4.75. We have about 10 cents in wire in it. She cranks out, even this is slightly inaccurate. This is about 6 minutes per ring. I guess it's accurate, right? It's a 98% profit margin item and a $46 profit per hour item. Like that's a solid. A margin is great, right? And even profit per hour.
Sold over 100 of them last year.
Yeah, and profit per
hour. And it's
hour.
presumably a kid's pocket money sort of price point as well, so it's a really easy, no-brain sell.
Yep, and the amount of time you put in it, and so like this isn't going to run our business or anything, but items like this definitely I think have a place if you have the market for it, right? We definitely have markets with a lot of kids, and so that's a super easy sale that wouldn't have been a sale of anything else, right? And I know I talked about that early on plenty of streams, but I wanted to point out, like, in the comparative numbers here, 98% profit margin, and still a $46 an hour profit is pretty good. Laser cut items, this was like the ornaments that I sold. Again, 97% profit margin, $72 an hour in time to make. But as we go down into like the bags, the per hour, it starts hitting the $12, $17, $16 an hour. I'm also going to note that these are not taking into account that the hourlies here are not taking into account the cost to sell the item, the time cost to sell the item, right? Since that there isn't actually a correlation of when it sells versus how much time you spend into selling it.
How many times you pack it up and haul it?
Right. That is not baked in here. This is literally just, and so that's where I think it's important to know on that other sheet so this is where I thought, okay, so how do I kind of account for that? Knowing how much time you spend selling versus making, I think helps you to understand how much to discount this by, right? Because if I spend 60, if it's a 50-50 split, right, you easily just cut this price in half to get your true hourly, because half the time you spent making it and half the time you spent selling it, right? The better you can get that split to lower time selling versus making, I think that the higher the higher this number becomes. So just something to take into account here. But having these numbers, knowing what my margins are, allow me to say, do I want to continue to make this item, or how much do I want to focus on making this item, right? Aromatherapy pendants or essential oil pendants, they're not really my favorite things to make. And out of all the things I make, like, they're on my lower end of per hour and profit margin. Fountain pens are on my lower end of profit margins, and they're middling in my profit per hour if I'm looking at all my pens. So it's definitely yes, you want that variety, but could I focus more on bolt action pens, which are my highest profit per hour and one of my higher profit margins, for example. And executive pens are definitely popular.
If you hadn't run the actual numbers directly,
Mhm.
and had just used your experience of being at the markets
Yep.
and your intuition, how close do you think your results of what was profitable and should be focused on versus what wasn't profitable and should be maybe dropped would have matched the figures that you've actually come up with?
I would have chosen these two from a popularity standpoint. My bolt action pen and my executive, in case you can't read it. I would have said, well, fountain pens, I haven't made enough of them. I only had 5 of them out for the year, right? And I only ended up selling one, and I made them like last month of the year is when fountain pens got added. So I don't really have a good data set there. I would say that my hybrid slimline, like executive, is my most popular. And my hybrid slimline, I sell the 35, either wood and resin or wood and fabric or whatever, is my second one. They're like tied for popularity standpoint. And then my natural slimlines, I would think my natural slimlines are a higher profit per hour as well as profit margin, by a better factor than what they actually are, right? We can see it's a 2% margin higher and a $4 profit per hour higher on the natural slimlines, which I sell for 25 instead of 35, because I thought that the speed in making them was faster, but when I actually sat down and did the math, it's like another 15 minutes to make a hybrid slimline, which does make it less, but not a ton less. So I still kind of prefer to do the $25 version all wood, but also they're not as popular. So I'm not going to sell as many of them. So it doesn't matter that their profit per hour is higher if I can't sell as many of them.
You've only got that profit if it sells.
If it sells, exactly. So I still would have nailed like my top 2 most popular ones, right? Which are the bullet pens or the bolt action pens, and the executive, the single body pen. And because like what the executive really has going for it, and the bolt action, is because they are single body, versus a slimline pen that has the top and bottom tube, right? It's like
it's like the seam rippers are the easiest kits you can turn.
Yep.
there's not even pressing parts into the end of them afterwards.
Yeah, but yet for me, Seam Rippers, because the kit is more expensive and what I can charge for it. I don't know what you charge for
Yes.
your Seam Rippers, but I can only get $20 for my Seam Rippers, and even that they sold.
I charge 25 wood and 30 if they're resin or wood resin mix.
And maybe maybe I should try that, right? And up them to the same price as my Slimline and see how they do at the start of the year, because that would definitely help their profit per hour. Their margin is fine at 85%. I mean, most of our margins are fine. Like I will say, I didn't destroy myself on margins at any point.
Yeah. It's last year I pushed up a lot of my costs quite decently as well on some of them. The pendants went from 20 to 25, for example,
That's good.
and it had maybe a slight impact in the number of sales, but the overall turnover was increased. So
Yeah.
that was a worthwhile thing from my point of view. If I have to make less of them but make more money, that's a bonus.
Yeah, I changed my bolt actions. I had them at 45 and I bumped them to 50 before the end of the year, like so during the season. And I think that executives I'm going to take to $50 for next year as well, because they were they were the most popular pen that I sold for the year.
Yeah. I think it's quite common for people to misjudge what the market will stand for something they've made, and therefore underpriced, and they'll say, I couldn't possibly charge that much.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's easier to bring your prices down if you really are overcharging than it is to push them up if you're really undercharging.
I know the challenge for people is when you don't have a larger data set to say what changed. If you look at one event, or you do 3 events a year, and you'll be like, well, my last event they didn't sell at all, and then it's like, well, okay, but that's one data point, right? So.
But from event to event and town to town, it's different as well.
And
what
time of year.
The time of year, and then what the event is. If we went to like a Fiesta Days, it's a town a couple towns over, and it was a lot of families. So they're wanting to buy just those couple little things because their kids are interested in grabbing something. We're not making big item sales. Where we were at one that was specifically like a holiday event for Christmas items, we sold a lot more because they were looking for gifts, and they were looking for those really, like, a lot of your pens, Shannon. They were looking for really nice gifts for teachers and coworkers and spouses and things like that, versus the family friendly markets.
Yeah. So this is by major category, right? Just looking at sales by dollars, sales by dollars throughout the year, right? And everything started off really slow because we really picked up in May and June, or I guess in June we didn't have any May shows, so June is kind of when we started. 2 interesting lines that I saw here were the blue line here is pens, right? That in the summer was fairly low, but you go to towards the end of the year, fall and winter, and they were the best selling items. And then laser cut items, right? Definitely started off down here. Again, I only started in July, and we just sold more of them in September. We sold like none of them in November
because those are the pumpkins.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was the pumpkin.
Those are the damn pumpkins.
And then the end of the year was the earrings, right?
Yeah.
We had laser cut earrings and other things too. So it's like.
And again, laser cut is it's one of those, because it can be a very high profit business. There are a lot of people who will go into it. And that has a risk of saturation of sellers or market to it.
Yeah.
If you're the only person doing it, then you can do really nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why we kind of try to pick and choose what laser cut items are offering. Notice that too. Amongst our markets, like even looking at other people's booths, and you're like,
yeah. I think, at the end of it, I think you have to make what you like, right? So enjoy making what you're gonna make, and I think that comes through in your ability to sell it too, right? Like if you are there and you look like you're just there because you need to be there, like that comes through, right? If you actually enjoy the items that you make, that comes through too, and like that sincerity and that genuineness really really comes out when you're talking to people about it. So
Yeah.
yeah, the pens were going up, and the other thing that were happening on that is we actually saw in the summer, her fiber arts, her bags did better at the festivals, and then for some reason, like we expected them to sell for Christmas, and they didn't. Right, so those were like the surprising things on that,
Yep.
and I think next year with even more data points, I hope to have some more things in there. But I will say, like, Owen, I know you've always been a fan of paring down, and we're definitely going to work on that as well, in making sure that the number of categories of things that we have are finite, right? And that,
Mm-hmm.
and try not to branch out too far. This was definitely an
Yeah.
exploratory year for us.
Yeah.
And another reason to do this is to try and then try things and then be like, okay, well, that didn't really work. That didn't work. And you can do that on gut. I just, being a data nerd, the real numbers behind it.
No, we were really trying a lot of stuff.
Yeah. It's good to know. For me, it was good to know why. Like, why don't I like, bud vases, or why don't I like seam rippers? And it's like, oh, because like, yeah, they're $30 an hour while my pens are $45 an hour, right? So why would I want to focus on one over the other? Now, if you can do both and not really take away time from one or the other, then that's fine too, right? And I still have the kits,
Yeah,
and maybe they become more
and there is that element of it as well. How many pens can you make and still be selling them at that $40 an hour, or versus reaching a point of going, well, actually, I've got 100 pens ready to go.
Yeah.
Do I need to be making pens now?
No, it's diversification at that point, right? And that's what we were trying to do. That's what I was trying to do the whole year, with making sure we had a variety of things. And the charts show, like, if we hadn't had certain items at certain points of the year, the shows would be miserable, right? If it was just pens at the start of the year, our shows would look a lot worse, right? Than having jewelry added in there. If it was just, bags at the end of the year, our shows would have looked, we needed the turned items there. So, and of course, place to place too. So,
Definitely.
all right. I think I said everything that I wanted to say, right? I don't know. Owen, I know it's late. I really appreciate you. I mean, I guess you would have been still streaming. What am I talking about? Like,
it's 1 a.m. I'd be maybe thinking about starting to look who to raid and going, is Shanigan's on, is Boyd on,
yeah,
and then going, it's a Wednesday, no, Boyd's not on.
exactly. So yeah, hopefully, anybody who's here got something out of this. If there's any questions you want to ask, now ask privately. It doesn't matter.
Is the making time on
stream
or
off stream? He knows it's not on stream, because on stream it's like you get distracted doing all sorts of stuff. So it's average, of course.
Almost all my making's on stream.
What's that?
I would say about 90% of what I make now is on stream.
Yeah.
My stream is me making.
Yeah, exactly.
I say it just holds me accountable to make sure that I'm actually sitting at the desk for an amount of time to something.
I've actually been pretty productive on stream. The last couple of streams, I've made like 8 or 9 things per stream. So in like a 3.5-hour streams. So I'd say that's good for these small items, right? Especially.
Definitely.
Roughly speaking, what would you say your cash versus card split is in sales?
I mean, I could actually tell you, because I do track the cash in Square. So I'll pull it up really quick. Oh, it's not going to be in this.
Yeah.
It's not in my exported view.
YouTube, I believe. PW. You can watch it again.
Yeah, it'll be a VOD, right, for 60 days, and I'm also gonna post it to YouTube, and I'll put the link in Discord for anybody who missed it and wants to watch it later, or go back for any points. And if you want to go back and, I think that we could definitely have these about other topics, right? This was very specifically like monetarily focused, right? And we dived a little bit into some potential tactics, people to watch out for or things to consider. But I know we definitely didn't talk into, I think we could easily have a stream about table presentation, right? What's a good way to present? What should you take into consideration? Like, what factors are important or not important? you know,
Yep.
Owen's gonna be like, well, I just do it this way, and that's the way I do it now. And but
Oh yeah,
Owen, you didn't always
not
start
changing my
out that way,
mind.
right? Like I'm sure you progressed over the years through different methods.
Oh god, yeah. If I found if I mean I've got take pictures of your stand, especially if as you start moving things around.
Yeah.
Because I've got pictures. I have pictures of my very first stands, and that first 2 years, it changed massively.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I try to take a picture of everyone. I don't know if I've taken it of absolutely everyone, but I've taken most of them.
You've been really good about that.
And I post them in
I've pretty much
Discord.
stopped now because it hasn't really changed much. I take a picture when I want to post something to Instagram now.
Right.
It's changed so little in the past 3 years that it's
You
stopped
could
being
have a
worth it.
stream about people too, like your
Yeah.
customers and that situation, because there's a lot of controlling conversations that need to happen so that you can move on and attend to everybody else. Because there's some people that would stand there and talk to you all day long,
Yeah.
and that cannot happen.
I need to hear that one. I need to know that, yeah, you can go away now, please. In a polite way. You know, just stay and say, will you just off? Doesn't apparently work that well.
Let's see.
Doesn't go down too good.
Here.
Uh-uh.
All right, so last year it was 2/3 on card.
Yeah, we
2/3.
Almost exactly. It was $3,000 in cash and $6,100 on card.
Yep.
So yeah, card. Yeah, people. You know, that's another thing to bring up, and could easily be brought up on another stream. But is like people like to complain about card fees. You know, or like should you track cash or not track cash? Tracking cash is your own business, right? Do you want to pay taxes, not pay taxes? Do you want to have the data to look at later? For me, that's what I wanted to do, right? Because I wanted to track my sale, and if I'm going to track my sale, I have to. I'm going to track how it's paid for too, and I don't. I'm going to pay the taxes. It's fine.
Yeah.
But accepting cards is an absolute must, right? That 3% is just a cost of getting that sale.
That's helping us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, last year, I took almost 5 times as much on card as I did in cash.
So 80%.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was 10,400 card, and 2,200 cash.
So TW, we did not give a discount for cash, but we did not charge extra tax for cash. So if they use the card, we charge the state tax. When they're doing it, because it comes up automatically, we have to. But for cash, we can just say, okay, it's the $20. It's $20 cash.
We still pay the tax on it, but we eat the tax if they pay cash. If they pay the tax if they pay it. So it's still better if they pay with
cash.
card. No, with
card.
With
card, yeah.
right? Because then the cost of the
so
item.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's like
for me, I can't give a cash discount because that would be against the law.
Right.
It is in across Europe. It is illegal to surcharge for card payments.
Okay.
And a discount for cash payments would be legally considered the same thing. That said, when people say to me, "Would you rather card or cash?" my answer is always card. I would much rather take card. It means I don't have to mess around with getting change to give to people.
Yeah.
If you know, people drop cash, people lose cash.
Yeah.
It's probably the riskiest way of holding money. Once that card transaction's gone through, it's transferred into your account.
Yep.
You know,
that's the other reason why we also ate the tax charge, because of change.
Yeah,
we didn't want to be like, it's $20, just $20, just.
And honestly, most people paying with cash, it wouldn't even be like they would be like, I want to buy this item, and it's a $20 item, and they're just handing you a $20 bill, and I'd have to stop and be like, it's actually going to be 21 whatever, right? Or you know, it's going to be $21 with tax, and they'd be like, ugh, and then like put it back, and I'm not going to have that conversation, right? I'd rather eat the 80 cents in tax that I'm gonna have to pay than lose the sale.
Right.
So
that's another not a British problem.
Well, I mean, like, but we're in different countries.
So so 2 reasons. One, in the UK, I don't have to charge sales tax unless I'm turning over in excess of 83,000 a year.
Okay.
So I don't add tax to I don't have to add tax to anything I sell, regardless, because, and in fact, that 83,000 is for a specific business. So my turnover from my web development business is irrelevant to my wood turning business because they're completely separate business areas. If someone looked at it and said, well, one's a consultancy, one's a web development, the same area, then it counts. But for this purpose, they're legally separate business areas. However, it's also law across the whole of Europe that the displayed price has to include sales. It is the price the customer pays. We cannot show an X tax price to a retail customer and then go, oh, by the way, 20% VAT on top of that.
Oh, that's good. I've actually considered changing our prices to bake in the tax to have it flat across the board, because then we won't be eating the cash tax, right? We'll be charging it to them both ways. So,
and for a lot of your customers, it'd be a happy little note when they realise that what you've put on your display is actually what they're paying. They're not having to calculate an extra whatever percentage it is.
Exactly.
Well, we actually changed
so all of a sudden you'll actually be charging them less than they think they're going to be paying.
Yeah.
We were experimenting. Again, we need to have one just on display because we changed a little bit of how that works as well with our prices.
Honestly, no, people are used to that in the US, right? You know the price of what you're going to be charged when you go to checkout is going to be higher than the price of the items by their tax. Yep. So it's just a difference in the countries, right? Since your tax has to be included in the price posted, ours doesn't anywhere, and the sales tax changes from city to city, county to county.
Well, and per item, because we have a different tax on food than we do on
groceries versus other goods.
Yeah.
Yeah, our sales tax is considerably higher than yours. I mean, we've got basically 3 tax rates for anything that is taxable. It's either going to be 20%, 15%, or 0%. Wow. That's the choices. Wow. So 25 and 0. Yeah. The 5% is a very narrow range of like heating fuels and things like that.
Okay.
0% are children's clothing, essential foods, and basically anything else is 20% if it's taxable.
Sure.
But most people don't even bother about that because the price you see on the shelf is the price included.
Yeah, 20% is crazy.
Yeah, 20%. You almost had me there. I was going to be like, maybe we should move. No.
Yeah, but then I don't have to do that at all because I don't turn over in excess of 83,000.
Yeah, and everybody's taxes are different.
But you're still paying the 20% when you go to the market.
Our taxes, for our business taxes, I know that every state is different here, but for our state, it was $100,000 in sales or over 200 sales. So they have both, right? So it's obviously we didn't do over 100,000, but we made over 200 sales, and so therefore we had to pay.
Yep.
But that means we have to collect sales tax too. And honestly, some of the bigger events that we went to, they give you the form and you have to pay it within 10 days of completion of the event.
Yep.
Send in the check for the sales tax.
Also, it's done on I mean, there are businesses here. I know a couple of people who they make children's clothing and they make really nice children's clothing. There's one person I know, she does her own does all her own fabric designs and gets them custom printed and makes like hoodies and stuff like that. And I have spent 2 years trying to make her realize that she needs to register for VAT. And every time I say, so I'm nowhere near 83,000 turnover, I don't need to. I was like, you're selling a 0-rated product. If you register for VAT, every 3 months, you can send the government a list of your purchases, and they'll pay you back that 20% VAT you've paid on everything.
Oh, wow.
It's like, it's money for nothing. It's money for doing a form every 3 months that you could literally get. She's buying custom printed fabric and she's paying 20% VAT on it.
Yeah. So she's not.
And she can claim all that back because her output product is 0-rated.
Wow. Well.
And she just, it's like, it's a no-brainer. You're paying hundreds of pounds a roll.
That's crazy.
That's sad.
If I could do that on anything, I would do that.
It's sad that she hasn't done that. Hey, Blacksmith Pop, welcome in. We're just wrapping up here. But reminder.
Hey,
oh, you know what? Actually, before we wrap up, sorry. Let's talk, just in case there's anybody chilling here who doesn't already know about Maker Central. Owen, do you want to give your spiel on Maker Central? And there's a link in chat.
There you go. So Makers Central is an annual event in the UK at Birmingham, set up 2018 by Nick Zametti. You might have seen him on YouTube. He does lots of throwing random things in resin and turning bowls out of them type videos and the like. I've been to the last 2 of them. I actually live streamed at the last one. I went there just for the Saturday. And I really want to go to Maker Central this year to represent Twitch makers and crafters and Twitch artists and Twitch scientists and technologists. So we're doing a fundraiser to cover the costs of booking the stand, doing all the graphics, doing the handouts and things that will be needed for it, paying for accommodation. And part of that is we're doing a makers auction in 2 weeks. 2 weeks tomorrow. That's going to be on the 16th of February. So we've got a few things already in. We've got a few people who have said they will put things in, but are probably still working on making those things and deciding which things they're putting in. I also need people to come along and bid on those things as well. I've just put my 2 don't think I'm doing too badly. I literally did my entries today on the form. So
Oh, and you need pictures.
So
I'm
it's
like,
all
oh, I gotta take pictures of something now. No, I'm kidding. Of course.
well, one of them was really easy. I just downloaded a picture off the Maker Central website because I'm going to buy a T-shirt for somebody.
Oh, there you go. Not a bad idea.
I'm going to do a "What can I scrounge at Maker Central" goodie bag as one of my giveaways for someone who can't be there. Well,
Sure.
not giveaway as the prize for
Yeah,
someone who can't
the
be there. It's going to be I'll buy a T-shirt to order, and then any freebies I can pick up and put into the package will go in there as well.
There you go. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's not, that's an it's an interesting prize. I like that. So that's super cool. Yeah. So definitely any of the makers in here, if you have the ability to donate something to the auction, please do. Right. If you have the ability to donate, also please do. Otherwise, if you can just spread the word, I guess. And if you aren't a maker and not going to join, but you want to participate in the auction 2 weeks from now, right? There's going to be a lot of cool items from makers to be able to support this, to spread the Twitch making crafting word as far as we can. So thank you.
Like I now
Yeah,
have
it
to do a
is
thing.
2 weeks tomorrow, and I think we agreed with TJ. So TJ's going to co-host with me.
Awesome.
I think we agreed on a 11 p.m. UK time start. So same time as we started this,
Yep,
or we're meant
5
to start
Central,
this.
5 Central.
I think that's what we agreed on. I'll double check and make sure that's on the website information.
Awesome.
We did get a couple of extra donations today, so we are up to 29% of our total goal.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah, I'm really pleased with how it's going.
Yeah,
really pleased.
Add 1 more %. I'll donate. I'll make something.
Well,
yeah,
we'll talk.
Okay.
I think she may have mixed some streams there. We'll figure it out. It's fine. I'll fill her in. So Owen, thank you so much.
Well, it's okay because the thing that is donated into the auction will add that 1%, so it's or more.
That's right.
So it's going to work as the.
See, there we go. Exactly.
Every £30 is 1%.
Every £30 is 1%. That's right. All right. So Owen, thank you so much for hanging out and for chatting tonight. Right, I appreciate your insight and taking the time. Hopefully everybody else does as well. I do plan on doing a few more like collaboration streams this year. So if anybody has a topic that they want to discuss, right, that they think that I might be able to add value to, or that they want to just try and even just have an open forum discussion, we can definitely do that as well. I want to bring more, I guess, like talking about the things. I know we talk about them on stream, but to just have sometimes the dedicated conversations, right, and back and forth with 2 different streamers on the same stream really has a lot of value add versus like chat and then the person doing whatever they happen to be doing.
3 streamers.
3. Oh my gosh.
New affiliate. That way. That way.
Why did you say hey?
Somebody remembers a thing.
Somebody remembers a thing. Yeah.
Official today.
Owen's better than me. I think we got everything. I know. So TW, I think he said, why not advertise things with the sales tax already in? And that is totally an option, right? And something that we're gonna do. I don't know. Did that? We definitely did it for some of our items that almost exclusively sell in cash, like the rose rings, right? I actually put those into my sales system with the tax baked in. And I found that there actually is an option to do it easier than the way that I did it, and deduct it automatically, where it will scale the tax out of the item, no matter what flat
Right.
cost you have, because we went to some shows where the sales tax was a percent higher or lower, and
Yeah, we had to change it accordingly based on county.
so yeah, definitely talking about how to use sales systems could be a discussion all of its own, and I'm still learning things.
So the advertising the price as is difficult because of when we travel, some counties have different tax brackets
Yeah,
than
it would just mean that we're
Why
eating
do you
more
have to make
tax.
things so
well, and we're making
complicated?
new signage each time.
Why,
It would
why
just
do you
mean-
have to vote for such complicated systems?
Yeah, well, yeah, because we totally made that system, Owen. We did it. Yeah, I have any power
You
to
elect
change
the
it.
government to make the system.
Yeah, I know. So,
That's not
um,
even.
so everyone, thanks for hanging out. Right, appreciate the discussion. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out after. Right, I'm always going to be really open about finances, in this arena at least for sure, because I think that it's something that is a lacking topic, right? It's lacking in detail when you try to look for it, about what you could. People like to throw out 3x materials for a price, or how to complicatedly price your items or something like that. And it all, you can choose to do it however you want. Again, there's so many factors that go into place, but I'm going to show you I can give you what my opinions on it are, and I'm definitely going to be a bit more business slanted. Even though I'm still going to be artistic and it's a side thing right now, I'm still coming at it with the idea of trying to take it seriously enough to where there might be a pivot point in the future, right? Because if you don't take it seriously enough, there will never be that pivot point. So I'm trying to do that at some point.
Sell yourself short.
Don't sell yourself short. Exactly.
Value yourself, your time, what you're making.
Right. And hopefully next year I can come in and say that I made more than $10.71 an hour in my making time. Right. That's now the bar. I just got to make more than $11 an hour, and
Do your numbers separately.
then they'll look better. You just skew the data. All right. With that said, we're gonna raid out now, so we can go eat dinner, and Owen can hang out before going to bed. Anchored Albatross is on, and she is having her 1 year Twitch anniversary
Party.
stream.
Oh, and she's back to burning because
Yeah.
January's over.
I don't know if she's doing it tonight. Tonight is a big celebration. So,
Okay.
So 1 year Twitch anniversary. I'm told that there are giveaways and prizes and party and punch and pie. So stick around for punch and pie. Absolutely punch and pie. Let's go show her some love, and we're gonna head upstairs to have dinner and probably put her on TV for a little bit.
I'll be knitting.
All right. Stick around for this raid, everybody. But yeah, thank you for definitely hanging out. This was fun. I like this.
I will not
Be
be
good.
involved.
You're not gonna be, yeah. Thorn. See you, everyone.
How's it going?